I'll start by saying this. If you've ever been up to Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory, you know it's not like anywhere else in Australia. It's wild and untamed. Beautiful, sure, but it doesn't take long to feel like you're miles from civilization. And when you're out there, you start to understand that the land doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the animals and nature. So a few years ago, I was up there with a small group, just a few of us, heading out to do some fishing along the East Alligator River. Yeah, I know. It's a name that should have been a warning in itself. But we weren't thinking about that. We'd done this trip a few times before, always respectful of the land and the creatures that live there. But no matter how many times you go, no matter how careful you are, you're never really prepared. The day had started out like any other. We'd launched the boat early, heading up the river to find a good spot to drop our lines. The water was calm, and the sun was just starting to beat down as we navigated through these quiet stretches of river, lined with mangroves on both sides. You'd hear the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface or the rustle of something moving through the trees, but for the most part, it was silent. Now, anyone who's fished these waters knows you've always got to keep an eye out for crocs. They're everywhere up here, big ones too. And the locals, the traditional owners, will tell you stories about the giants that patrol these waters. We'd seen plenty of crocs on our trips before, large ones, 15, even 18 feet long, but we always stayed clear, gave them their space, and they mostly left us alone. So we'd been out for a few hours at this point when I started getting this uneasy feeling. I mentioned it to one of the guys, but he just shrugged it off. "You're spooking yourself," he said. And maybe I was, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. We found a spot near a bend in the river with a small sandy bank where we could anchor the boat. The mangroves were thick on one side, their twisted roots dipping into the water. We set up our lines, cracked a couple of beers, and waited. About 20 minutes in, out the corner of my eye, I saw a ripple in the water. At first I thought it was just the current, or maybe a big fish, but then I saw it again, closer this time. I turned to look, and that's when I saw just the tip of a snout breaking the surface, followed by the unmistakable ridges of a croc's back, moving slowly through the water. And this thing was huge. I pointed it out to the others, and we all just stood there, watching it glide past the boat. It was massive, easily the biggest croc I'd ever seen in person. Its head alone looked like it could crush a man, and it was moving with that slow, deliberate ease that only comes from something that knows it's the top predator. We kept our distance, didn't make any sudden moves, just watched it as it drifted past. It disappeared into the murky water a little further downriver, and for a moment we thought that was it. Just another close encounter. But then, about 5 minutes later, the water next to the boat erupted. The croc had lunged out of the water, jaws wide open, heading straight for us. It happened so fast. 1 second, everything was calm. And the next, this massive beast was halfway out of the water, its teeth snapping inches from the side of the boat. I swear I could see right into its eyes for a moment, and it let out this deep rumbling noise as it tried to grab onto the boat. The boat rocked violently, and we all scrambled, trying to get out of its reach. I've never felt that kind of fear in my life. You're out there, in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly, you're face to face with a creature that's been around since the dinosaurs. And this thing wasn't just trying to scare us, it was trying to get us out of the boat. I grabbed onto the side of the boat, trying to steady myself, and that's when I seen its full size. As it came up out of the water, you could see just how massive it was. Easily 25 feet, if not more. Its body was thick and scarred, with these jagged, armored scales running down its back like something out of a nightmare. And its tail, that tail was a weapon in itself, thrashing through the water with enough force to tip the boat if it got a good enough hit. For what felt like an eternity, the croc kept lunging at us, its jaws snapping so close I could hear them slam shut, like the sound of bone breaking. Every time we thought it was done, it would dive under the water, only to resurface somewhere else, closer each time. At one point, it went completely silent. The water around us stopped moving. We couldn't see it anymore, but we knew it was there, somewhere beneath us. All of a sudden, the boat rocked hard, harder than before. The croc had hit us from below, knocking us off balance. I went flying across the deck, slamming into the side. The others were yelling, trying to get the motor going, but it wouldn't start. I could feel the panic rising, everyone realizing at the same time that we were completely at this thing's mercy. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The water went still, We waited nervously, expecting the croc to come back any second, but it didn't. Minutes passed, and slowly we managed to get the motor running, and we didn't stick around to see if it was still watching us. Now, to this day, I don't know why it stopped. Maybe it got bored. Maybe it decided we weren't worth the effort. But I'll never forget the look in that croc's eyes, pure hunger and instinct. And I'll never forget how small and helpless we all felt out there, knowing we were nothing more than prey in its world.